This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we're going to start our council meeting, and if I could ask those that could mute themselves when they're not speaking so we don't have any background noise, please. And council, welcome everyone. Nice to see everyone, and looking forward to a great meeting. If I can get a mover and a seconder to open, please. Peter and Belinda. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that we do call this regular meeting of council to order on Wednesday, August 12th, 2020 at 6 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so moving on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. We did get an update to amend the agenda for item 6.4, the special meeting, to possibly put an addition to the special meeting. I would suggest to council that we actually postpone setting that special meeting after our closed session, just in case we want to add more of that conversation to the special meeting too. So if I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Drago and John. Okay, so moved by Drago Stefanik, second by John Peroff. Be it resolved that council does hereby approve the agenda as amended. All in favor? And that's carried. So moving on to item number 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof and declaration of conflict of interest. If any members have conflict of interest, they can declare that now or anytime throughout the meeting. Belinda, go ahead. You are muted, Belinda. Thank you.
The housing one, Front Street. Yeah, can you help me?
Declaring a conflict of interest for housing. What item is that? Sorry.
Right, find it. 18.1.
18.1, okay.
What reason did you to put in there, Belinda? It says I declare a conflict of interest on agenda item number 18.1 of the agenda for the above noted meeting for the reason
of personal purchase, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Belinda. Noted. And Peter, go ahead.
Belinda?
Okay, you want a conflict, state a conflict of interest as well? We didn't hear what you were saying at the beginning.
Yeah, it's the same item as Belinda's declaring.
Okay, the same item. And Gail has a form that she's filling out. What's the reason?
Close family relation to that matter.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
You for that. Are we good to carry on, Gail? Okay, great. And also for the rest of council or the members that have declared a conflict at any time through the meeting, if a conflict arises, you can state it at that point as well. So let's move on to 5, adoption of minutes. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Peter? And a seconder, please. Belinda? Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the council, the corporation, the township of Hornpain does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on Wednesday, July 15th, 2020, as distributed. Those in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, item number 6, business arising from the minutes. We have none. Let's continue on to item number 7. So we do have a presentation today, and welcome Matthew Smith to our council meeting. And I'm going to let you just take the floor, Matt. You can introduce yourself and any colleagues you like to council. And we're glad to have you in Hornpain virtually. Hopefully you'd be able to see our nice town one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good evening, Mayor Fort and council members, township staff, members of the public. It's a pleasure to be here, like you said, virtually, coming to you live from London, Ontario, and hopefully under different circumstances next time. I was kind of looking forward to getting out of the office, or I guess in this case, getting away from home for a little bit, but it'll have to wait until next time. But I'm pleased today to present the township's asset management plan. Now, did you guys want me to share my screen, or did you have a copy that you're going to be following along with individually?
I'm thinking if we can. Oh yes, we are at council. We all have copies.
Okay, perfect.
Gail, will it be problematic to share the screen? I'm just wondering for those that are present if they don't have a copy available to them.
I don't know. Let me see if I can do it. I'm not very good at this type of thing. I think I have to let you share.
Whatever's easiest. If you're able to, you just have to make me presenter. So I don't know if there's a little bubble above my camera name, and if you can click make presenter. But if it's too much trouble, I don't mind doing it the other way around. So that would be your screen sharing there. And then if you mouse over my webcam, and I think there should be a little 3 dots or a bubble, something like that. But if not, that's okay.
Hold on. Oh, I should have talked to you earlier about this, Matt.
That's okay. Well, I was just thinking of it because we use the GoToMeeting platform as well. So I was like, oh, this is familiar for me. But I know I was presenting to Wawa's council meeting last night, and that was just through phone, so we didn't even have webcam. So in that case, I was just calling out slide numbers. I don't mind doing that if it's easiest, but I mean, whatever's.
Well, we do have, just a minute, maybe here. You've shared, okay, I think I did it.
So that would be, so this is just giving me keyboard and mouse control, I think, over your PC. So it would just be.
Oh, here we go. I got it, Matt. I'm sorry, everybody.
Okay, no, that's okay.
That's okay, Gail. We're all new at this, right?
Yeah, this is new for everyone.
And I have to say, I am really impressed by our progress, Hornpain. So.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, perfect.
Not based on tonight.
Oh, don't. You're too hard on yourself.
Hey, we're making it work. Okay, so you should be able to see my presentation now. So is this okay? Does this work for everyone? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Perfect. So as I mentioned, so I'll be presenting the township's 2020 asset management plan this evening, something we've been working on for the past about 6 months or so. In concert with the implementation of the township's new kind of asset management software. So now where we're storing all of this inventory data, making sure that we empower staff to have complete control over it, have different reporting capabilities, so on and so forth as well. So I'm sure over the past 6 months, Gail and Melissa and Dwayne are getting sick of talking to me every couple of weeks, but hopefully it hasn't been too painful of an experience. I'm certainly thrilled with the progress that we've been able to make. So I wanted to present a little bit of that this evening as well. Just quickly about PSD, so the company that I work for, we do have 3 divisions, research, consulting, and software, all catered towards the municipal sector. So we have several employees with municipal backgrounds. We built our software with municipalities in mind and taking into account feedback from municipalities as well. And we continue to make adjustments there based on our work with communities such as yourself as well. So I'm part of the consulting division, but part of this project, we also worked with the software division, like I said, the report as well as the software. So we don't want to just give you a report at the end of the day. It's just a stack of paper, something that's not dynamic. Everything in the report was kind of built based on this new system we're implementing for you guys as well. So you can run all the same sorts of reports, get all that same sorts of data and information yourself. And as you make changes over time, the numbers will change and evolve with that as well. So that's really a big kind of emphasis behind this project as well. Not just a paper report, it really is a living document and something that you guys have full control over as well. just a couple quick slides on asset management. I won't spend too much time on it. I'm sure it's come across your desk over the past couple of years, and I don't want to go through some big academic, what is asset management? But in a general sense, of course, municipalities exist to provide services to the community, and you need infrastructure assets to do that. So roads aren't just roads, they provide a transportation service. Storm sewers they don't just sit under the ground, they provide stormwater management services. And buildings, another good example, recreation, administration, and operation services. So these assets have a cost throughout their entire life cycle. It's not just about the cost for construction or procurement, but there's ongoing costs throughout the life cycle to maintain it, rehabilitate it, and in every case replace it at some point as well, because assets deteriorate. So asset management is about putting in place proactive strategies and processes to manage asset deterioration and make sure that we have a good sense of, what is our financial capacity to meet our long-term requirements as well. So asset management is really high-level, long-term planning. That's really the goal of what we're doing here. And there's kind of three different interconnected pieces related to value as far as asset management is concerned. There's cost, so it's always about the money. There's risk, and then there's level of service at the end of the day. So these are kind of three interconnected pieces of value in asset management. If you have a lot of money and you're spending a lot of that or reinvesting that in assets, which generally isn't the case for municipalities, it's going to reduce the level of risk exposure across your asset portfolio because your assets will be in ideally much better condition, and then it's going to increase the level of service you can provide to the community. But if you have less money, which is typical for most municipalities, then obviously you might, if you don't have proper strategies in place, you might see an increased risk exposure through reduced condition or deterioration of your assets and a reduced level of service to the community. So, you're always kind of tugging and pulling at each kind of corner of this kind of triangle or pyramid up here as well. But the key factor is money. A lot of the times it comes down to money at the end of the day. We know what we want to do, but do we have enough money to do it? And that's really key as well. And so really the goal of asset management is to manage infrastructure at the lowest total cost and risk to meet the desired level of service as well. And I put this graphic up here as well because I want to emphasize that asset management isn't just about maintaining or managing physical assets. It should be connected or aligned with whatever your organizational objectives are as a municipality as well. So there should be, kind of a through line between the way that you manage assets in the field all the way up to what your goals and service objectives are as a community as well. So it should really be a holistic approach there. So a couple years back, the province in all of its supreme wisdom passed Ontario Regulation 588/17. And so this is the most recent regulation on asset management planning in Ontario. So all municipalities have to follow it. So within the last year or two, you probably saw what's called an asset management policy come your way. So that's just outlining kind of this high level framework, what we're committing to as an organization in terms of asset management. And then the key focus right now and what we've been focusing on are kind of three iterations of what's called an asset management plan. So you've had asset management plans completed in the past, so it's really building on that. There's a handful of different requirements that have been outlined by the province as well. So we've made sure that through this process, we've covered all of the requirements for the first phase or the first iteration of the asset management plan. So you needed to have that done by July 1st of next year. So we're a year ahead of the pace, which is great. You're ahead of 95% of municipalities in Ontario. You don't have to worry about scrambling at the last minute to pull something together. I know a lot of communities are kind of in that situation right now, so that's good. That's definitely good news. And for 2021, we only needed to include core infrastructure assets. So the province is defining core assets as roads, bridges and structural culverts, stormwater infrastructure, water infrastructure, and wastewater or sanitary infrastructure. So we've included all those, but we've gone above and beyond the first kind of stage of requirements. We've included all other asset categories. So what are called non-core asset categories, that would be your vehicles, your machinery and equipment, your buildings and facilities, your land improvements and parks, that sort of thing as well. So those have all been included because we want to have a full picture of the total cost requirements there. But there's still a little bit of work to do that doesn't need to be done until 2023 at this point. So by 2023, you're going to continue to refine your asset inventory and the processes you have in place. They're just looking for a little update. We already have those assets in the asset management plan. The province just wants a little bit more detail on what your approach to managing those assets is currently. So you guys are in great shape. No scrambling last minute. And I'll kind of spend the rest of the presentation just kind of going through what some of our findings were and what our recommendations are. So the asset management plan itself does a few different things. It will tell you what the current state of your municipal infrastructure is. So I'll go through a few slides related to current condition based on the best available data, projected service life remaining, for example, and it also, and of course, replacement cost. So what does it actually cost to replace it? It also gives you an idea of what your financial capacity is currently to meet not just short and medium, but also long-term capital requirements to maintain, rehabilitate, and ultimately replace these assets at the end of the day. And then finally, there's a series of process improvements or recommendations to your asset management program more broadly that we've identified as well. So it's not all about the numbers. It's not all about the money. I know a lot of times, people jump to, how much money do we need and how much money do we have and what's the difference? And that's all they care about in the plan. And that's certainly important. We'll find across all municipalities that there's going to be some extent of deficit. But really the key is as well to empower staff to use processes and strategies to prioritize needs at the end of the day and make sure that the decisions we're making are based on solid evidence and good data about our infrastructure as well. So not just about the money, the key recommendations we have are both financial and process related at the end of the day. But starting off with the money. So we've started by taking a look at the total replacement cost of all infrastructure. So we had a listing of all inventory provided by staff, and we used a couple of different methods to determine what the current value is today if we were to replace all of it, right? So of course, you're not going to do that within a single year, but it helps with the analysis that we're completing. So we used a combination of unit costs. So for core linear infrastructure, let's say roads, water mains, sewer mains, we were able to put together a unit cost in linear meters, for example, in reference to other municipalities of similar size and geographic proximity as well. We reviewed those with staff to make sure that they were reasonable, and we made some adjustments there as necessary. And then for other assets, so machinery and equipment and vehicles, in some cases, we've used historical cost inflation. So looking at the cost when it was previously purchased and then just inflating that to today's value. So this is a normalized cost in today's value of about $73 million. If you look at that in terms of the number of households in Hornpain, as of the 2016 census, it's about $180,000 worth of infrastructure per household, and that's substantial. And it's much higher than we would see with larger municipalities, where they're able to spread those costs out among a larger tax base and potentially a tax base with more industrial and commercial assessment at the end of the day. So this is certainly a key challenge, something we've talked about a lot through this process as well, is, we have our financial recommendations, but we already know that taxpayers in smaller rural municipalities are burdened enough as it is. So we have to make sure that we take that into account when we're making or when we're having any discussions about what our long-term financial strategy is as well. So you can see from the graph, there's a couple of different asset categories that are certainly a higher value. So your water and sanitary or wastewater network far and away have the highest replacement costs compared to other tax-funded asset categories. So water and sanitary both being rate funded. So those are certainly areas where you'd want to focus quite a bit of attention. Asset management's really all about proportionality. We care about all assets, but we spend more time thinking and planning for those assets that have the highest cost and also the highest consequence of failure as well. So those are two areas where, spending some extra time and attention, making sure you know the condition of those assets, making sure you know how much life is remaining is really key compared to, looking at an asset category like vehicles, which, while equally important, may not have the same sort of consequence of failure or probability of failure of some other infrastructure. So we've taken a look at condition. So condition really is the backbone of asset management. We want to have good data on the current condition of infrastructure. So where we don't have data, we rely on age-based estimates. So for every asset, we know when it was constructed or acquired, We know what today's date is, obviously, as well. And we know approximately how long, we can estimate how long these assets are meant to be in service for. When we have that information, we can make some general guesses or estimates based on the age of the asset, how much life is left in it, and likely what condition state is it in. But we don't like to rely on age-based estimates. They tend not to be reliable. It's kind of a last resort. So we prefer to have assessed condition data in most cases. So that was something that we talked about a lot as well. As a key recommendation here is having a condition assessment strategy in place. You know, how often are we assessing our assets, according to which criteria, who's responsible for it, so that it can feed into this plan moving forward as well. So we've done some cursory assessments over the past few months as well. We certainly want to build upon that. So you can see in the table below, 23% of assets, now that's weighted by replacement cost, we have some form of assessment for. But the remaining assets, we're relying on age-based estimates. So as we put in place strategies to assess those assets, whether it's internally or bringing in an external assessor like we do for bridges every 2 years, for example, that's really going to be a key moving forward to build confidence in asset management planning. So we've put in place kind of two different scenarios when looking at long-term capital costs for infrastructure. The first is the end-of-life replacement-only strategy, and this is, you know, you construct an asset, you buy an asset. You know, you let it deteriorate, and at its end of life, you simply replace it. It's typically not how we manage infrastructure, though. Typically, there's some form of a maintenance program in place or a rehabilitation cycle where, if we think about it strategically, we can potentially reduce the total life cycle cost by intervening earlier in the life of these assets. So we've compared the end-of-life replacement strategy with a life cycle strategy scenario for a handful of assets as well. In this case, we focused on roads, and we've also done a little bit on bridges as well. So for roads, it was primarily about building in, you know, what if we were kind of mirroring the current preventative maintenance approach? What if we have a more proactive asphalt patching strategy? So we'd assume that if employed correctly and timely, we can extend the life of our road surfaces before they require full replacement, right? So this is kind of the idea behind this strategy or this scenario. And then for bridges as well, we took a look at what are the structural engineers recommending for the life cycle activities to maintain these structures, so we can build that into the plan as well. Now, you might look at some more substantial capital rehabilitation events for roads moving forward. So resurfacing events, we talked about a little bit during this process too. You know, you guys face unique challenges with your location and the cost of bringing in contractors, the mobilization cost there, which might make those sorts of activities a little less cost effective than for other municipalities, unless you're doing a large chunk of the municipality all at once, and it's more of a coordinated project. But that's another area where staff are going to be continuously reviewing what the best approach is too. So for roads, for example, even just applying that, you know, proactive asphalt patching strategy, we did a little bit of modeling and determined that saves the municipality about $22,000 per year in capital costs. So not a lot, but it is a 14% decrease of what we call the annual capital requirements in order, in this case, to maintain the paved road network. So we're moving from about $155,000 a year to about $123,000 a year. We also took a look at service life remaining. So again, all assets have a useful life, they have an in-service date, and they have a replacement cost. If we have those three pieces of information, we can do quite a bit of analysis. So we took a look at what percentage of assets are, you know, have no service life remaining, and they might just need an assessment. It might not be that they can no longer provide the service they're intended to. How many are within 0 to 5 years of with service life remaining, 6 to 10 years, and over 10 years as well. So we've done that across all asset categories. This graph can be a bit misleading sometimes because some asset categories, the average asset has a much shorter estimated useful life. So if you take a look at the table below, vehicles, for example, they're only designed or meant to last for about 7 to 15 years anyway. So make sure that you understand the context before reading a little bit too far into this graphic as well. But essentially what we found is that the average age of assets is about 40 years. There's a lot of subsurface linear infrastructure and roads put in the township in the 70s. So as those age and start to deteriorate, you're certainly going to see a lot of those assets come up for rehabilitation and replacement within the next 20 to 30 years as well. So starting to plan for that now is really critical. So we've also taken a look using that information at what our forecasted capital requirements are. So again, these are projections. These are forecasts based on the best available data that we have now. It's not meant to be a capital plan. Like I said, asset management planning is really long-term, high-level overview of what those infrastructure requirements are. So it's a lot better at looking at what are the long-term costs as opposed to what are our costs within the next 1 to 5 years, for example. So that's kind of the way I look at this as well. So this graph here, for example, shows over the next 50 years what we're projecting in terms of capital requirements. And you can see that the average annual capital requirement for all infrastructure is just shy of $2 million. And that's a lot of money. So I'll go into a bit more detail about what we do with that information over the next few slides. But you can also see as well how those capital needs, if we're just looking at purely the data itself, there's going to be peaks and valleys year over year. So in this case, they're 5-year kind of bars. Every bar represents 5 years. So certainly we're not adjusting our capital spending in order to meet whatever the needs are in a given year. We want to see a more sustainable level of funding that we can apply across infrastructure. And then when we do have higher costs in the future, maybe we have a little bit of money set aside in order to meet those costs as well. So we've implemented life cycle strategies for paved roads and for bridges. The rest are using kind of that replacement only approach that we talked about. So there's an opportunity for cost savings through a more proactive planning approach there. So what we've done with that figure is we've compared it against the funding that's currently available. And what our focus was on sustainable revenue sources. So we only wanted to consider in our long-term financial strategy sustainable sources of revenue. So of course we're not taking into account one-time grants, which you guys would be heavily reliant on, and grant funding programs that might not be reliable into the future. But we're looking at things like property taxes, like user fees and rates, sustainable grant funding programs and transfers like the federal gas tax, for example. And what we were able to do is kind of determine, in combination between all of those sustainable sources, there's about 487,000 available for capital funding in a given year. So whether or not you're spending that much is a bit different. So that leads to an annual capital deficit of about $1.4 million. This is typical. I know these numbers probably scare you and make you want to jump out of your chair and not look at the screen anymore. This is typical. You're not in a unique situation. In some ways you are, but in many ways you aren't. All municipalities face this infrastructure deficit. So what we're hoping is that, the province has asked for this information. We've completed the analysis, is that it's really a stark reminder to them about the struggles of municipalities and particularly small and rural communities to meet these capital costs. So operating costs are one thing, but continuing to reinvest in infrastructure is really difficult absent provincial and federal grants and transfers that are sustainable year over year. So there's kind of a two-pronged approach with this plan. It's informative internally, but it's also messaging back to the province. They've asked for it. We're now telling them, if we're going to sustain this infrastructure, we probably need more sustainable sources of revenue moving forward. So kind of throwing the ball back in their court. Another way to look at it is in terms of reinvestment rate. So this is just another way of looking at it. So you guys have a target average annual infrastructure reinvestment rate of 2.6%. So that's looking at your annual capital requirements divided by the total replacement cost of infrastructure. And we compare that to the actual rate. So instead of what the requirements are, what you're actually spending and what's available for capital, again, compared to the replacement cost of all the infrastructure. And you're spending or you're reinvesting at a rate of just under 1% as well. So that gap is fairly typical. And it's certainly something that we want to put in place a strategy to kind of mitigate it as much as possible. So we've put in place a financial strategy, and this again is one of those kind of scary slides when you first see it. but is very typical and quite common. And I'll provide a bit more context here. So in order to close the infrastructure deficit, we put together some scenarios over a 5, 10, 15, and 20-year phase-in period as well, in order to close the infrastructure deficit. So in all cases, across both tax-funded and rate-funded assets, we've recommended a 20-year phase-in. Even with that length of time, the increases we're recommending, and this is to meet the infrastructure deficit, so really based on the data that we have now, are still pretty steep. So for tax-funded assets, that would be an annual change or increase of about 1.7%. That's not insignificant. And that would be purely for money that would go towards capital spending. It would not take into account any increasing operating costs as well as inflation as well. So keep that in mind as you're looking at these figures. And it's the same for water and wastewater too. So 3.1% annually over a 20-year period for water and 4.6% over wastewater as well. So this is challenging. We understand that. And ultimately, the decisions are made by council. So this is based on the data, based on the numbers, based on the analysis the province wants. It's up to you guys at the end of the day, who is really in tune with taxpayers, what their asks are, and what your thoughts are, in order to kind of justify if we are increasing taxes or rates, how do we justify it? So this is really more so a discussion point than anything else. But if you are looking to close the infrastructure deficit, as the goal of asset management is, the impacts are fairly substantial there. So in addition to the financial strategy recommendations I mentioned earlier, we also made recommendations related to key asset management program enhancement. So what sorts of strategies and processes can we put in place that will allow us to better manage infrastructure and ideally do it for less money over the long term as well? It starts with a continuous refinement of asset inventory data. So inventory data and condition data are two of the most important pieces of asset management and asset management planning as well. If you don't have confidence in it, you're not going to have confidence in the analysis of, say, an asset management plan. So we've identified some areas where staff will continue to refine the inventory data that we have, adding a bit more detail here and there, making sure there's continuous data validation so that the inventory list that Public Works has, for example, aligns with the inventory list that the finance department has too. So that's really a big goal of this new system we're implementing as well. So it's going to be a continuous process there that never stops. A lot of my job isn't workshops, isn't presentations. It's spending time looking at numbers and figuring out how can we optimize this, how can we manage this better, where are these numbers coming from, are they reliable, are they accurate? The second is portfolio-wide condition assessment strategy. So this is that other piece that's data related to making sure that we know how often we should be assessing our assets, according to what criteria. How do we determine a road that's in fair condition versus good or very good or a poor condition road? And responsibility. Is that the responsibility of internal staff, or do we need to bring in some cases, an external assessor to complete these as well? Our third recommendation relates to capital planning horizon. This is a challenge as well for smaller communities when year to year you're not necessarily confident in revenue sources, sustainable revenue sources, where that might be at in 5, 6, or 7 years, but moving towards a longer term planning horizon. Certainly for water and sewer assets, for example. So I know in the work with Aqua that you guys are doing as well, they've been a great support there in providing some additional detail. Expanding that sort of planning horizon to other asset categories would be great too, but certainly the water and sanitary would be a priority there for sure. And then our fourth point here is an evaluation of level of service as well. So there may be some areas where the service that you're providing right now really exceeds what the desires of the community are, or maybe it's too low. In many cases, it's too low, and that's the feedback you receive as well. So taking a look at the level of service you're providing to the community, engaging with community stakeholders and seeing, where can we better spend money in order to meet your needs while still maintaining this infrastructure is going to be key. We've done a little bit with levels of service performance measures in this plan. It's just a start. Staff are just starting to take a look at putting in place some performance measures to evaluate long-term performance there. So you'll have to build that out a bit more moving forward to the provincial requirements in 2023 and 2024. But it's certainly something that that's worth taking a look at as well. And then finally, asset management planning is ongoing. It's not something that you do every 3 to 5 years when you have an asset management plan. Really the results of your asset management plan are a product of all the work you've put in over the past 3 to 5 years, right? So it's very challenging to do a lot of this work in a short period of time, unless you have someone who, is really dedicated to it. And it's very challenging for smaller communities where it's something that you're doing off the side of your desk at the end of the day, this whole asset management thing. So it can be challenging to put resources to dedicate them towards asset management, but certainly bringing together stakeholders from all departments in some sort of a working group. I know, working with Gail and Dwayne and Melissa as well, a lot of that's in place already. They have great conversations about where things are headed with asset management, where they need to refine data. So continuing to push that forward and prioritize it year over year. So when you update your next version of the asset management plan, you've made progress in some of these areas. So those are, kind of our key recommendations there. I got one final slide here. It's really just about why we do asset management at the end of the day. It really does lead to good governance and increased accountability with stakeholders, the public, council, and staff as well, making sure we're accountable for our management of infrastructure. It helps to use data to inform decision making. It's never just about data. It's always, and you can never automate asset management. You can to a certain extent, but it's always data plus people. So use the data to inform decisions based on discussions you're having as people, as staff, as people who live in the community and understand it as well. It can lead to enhanced sustainability of infrastructure. Of course, the goal here is an improved level of service and quality of life. And then also all the kind of additional benefits, so accurate forecasting of infrastructure needs, and the big one, compliance with federal and provincial regulations. So we've made sure this meets every requirement that you guys have in front of you for 2021. But like I said, it's going to be a continuous effort. It's something you're going to continue to work on. It's been a pleasure to work with staff, and every 2 weeks we have our check-in calls. We chat about some of these issues, challenges that you guys face, and how we can work to overcome those in the long term. So chipping away at it a little bit here and there is really what the name of the game is at the end of the day. So on that note, I'll wrap things up. I hope I haven't bored you to death here talking about asset management. I feel like I get more excited about it than anyone else. But on that note, I'm happy to take any questions you guys might have.
Thank you for your presentation, Matt. Very informative, well done. And I'm going to open the floor up to council for any questions for Matt or the presentation or the entirety of the plan. Go ahead, John. Councillor Para.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My first question is, I'm sure you guys discussed the replacement of the township offices. That has factored into part of the building fund?
Yeah, absolutely. So all municipal infrastructure is factored into it. So anything that's in the current asset inventory would be accounted for in there in terms of replacement value. And then, we would be engaging in discussions with staff about what's the current condition of those assets to make projections about long-term requirements there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, council? Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Through Mayor, thank you for a great report. The numbers on the cost asset are staggering. One blush at looking at the road work, it's pretty exciting. It's only 6.2 million, which is decent. But the infrastructure below the road work, which is 30 million plus another 20 million on top of that. So first number I looked at, I said, what's pretty decent number, but really for every 1 kilometer, what's the actual cost because the infrastructure replaced at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
And that can be broken down right later when you break it down per kilometer or whatever, 5 kilometers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be a key moving forward is project coordination. I mean, You're never, replacing a road without thinking about the infrastructure that's underneath it. So you're going to be able to reduce costs there by making sure that you have a plan in place and making sure that once you have better condition data on that underground infrastructure, and you already kind of know what the condition of your roads are because you drive them every day. It's not a it's not a massive township, so you guys know what condition they're in. Once you know the condition of subsurface infrastructure, then you can start to figure out, okay, well, should we just continue on with preventative maintenance on our road surfaces because we know in 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to have to rip up those roads anyways. We're going to have to do more substantial work there. Or if that's further off, so if these pipes are lasting longer than we expected, maybe the focus is more on the roads and whatever capital rehabilitation we can do now. So it's a great point you raise, and really that's going to be the key area where you're going to find cost savings is in project coordination.
Exactly. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Gail, did you have any questions? Oh, I have John. 1 minute there, Gail. John Paroff, go ahead.
Oh, Gail had her hand up first. Let her go first.
Thanks, John. I just wanted to say before it's too late that, Matt, it's been a pleasure working with you. We've learned a lot, and I think that you've set us up well to move forward and fine tune this plan. And we hope to work with you again in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your kind words, and really right back at you as well. I'll miss our calls every 2 weeks. Optimistic and bright and early in the morning whenever we chat. And yeah, looking forward to whatever work we guys can do with you. However we can help out, more than happy to be a part of it.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, John, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Matt, I got a couple questions. In your report, key milestones in your Ontario Regulation 588-17. In your opinion, what are the key points that we should be focused on that are more important than others, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
That would help us.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're put up in good shape now in that you have an extra year to work towards those 2023 requirements than most communities who will be doing theirs last minute here. So, really the key there is taking a look at what those additional requirements are in terms of it's mostly level of service measures. So what sorts of performance measures can we put in place to measure the service we're providing to the community? And it's also going to be taking a look as well at continuing to improve the data quality there too, making sure that assets we have in the inventory are actually in service, making sure that we have the full scope of the assets within the database as well, and continuously updating that as well. So that would be the key focus there. I would say focus on the data moving forward and try and get some better condition data as much as you can in before 2023 and see how the numbers change, see how the projections change, update your understanding that way as well.
Okay, thank you. But can I ask one more further question to that? You had mentioned that is there a software package to go with this, what you're discussing?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the implementation was software that we also developed as a company. It's called Citywide Asset Manager. So what we've done is we've taken all of the financial data sets that staff maintain and report on an annual basis. So that's through the PSAB 3150 reporting and FIR reporting as well. We've taken all of that and we've digitized it. We've put it into an asset management tool, which is what I use to build this plan at the end of the day as well. So all of the information is stuff I've taken out of Citywide, and you guys now have full access to it. You have full ownership of it. You can make changes to any information that we're using, replacement costs, useful lives. You can run reports like the ones I've put into the asset management plan as well. And also there's a GIS component to it too. So that was another part of the project is one great way to validate inventory data is to make sure that it links to a geographical data set as well, certainly for subsurface linear infrastructure. So, in the great work that township staff have been doing with the municipality of Wawa and the kind of the technical group they have there, we've also been able to link the asset inventory to GIS data where it exists. So that's built into the system too. There's a GIS component as well as an inventory management component, as well as a forecasting and reporting component as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Matt. Any other further questions from council? Okay, great. If I can just wrap up, thank you for that presentation, Matt, and for answering our questions and being patient with us at council. And I'm glad that you had such a good working relationship with our staff. We have great staff in Horn-Payne, so
Absolutely.
it's not surprising to me. But if I can get a mover and a seconder, please, from council for our council resolution that's on the table. Motion, Drago to move, and a seconder, please. Belinda. Okay, so moved by Drago Stefanik, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the council, the corporation, the township of Horn-Payne does hereby accept the draft version of the township of Horn-Payne's 2020 asset management plan as completed by Public Sector Digest, PSD, and presented by Matthew Smith and Tynan Bogaert. Did I say that right?
You got that right. He's not on the call today, but
He's
you
not.
nailed it.
Oh, great. You can
Yeah.
tell him.
I'll tell
Asset
him. Yeah.
Management Consultants, PSD Research Consulting Software. Be it further resolved that council acknowledges that the attached updated asset management plan, a living document, will serve as the foundation for future long-term planning and financial strategies, and that the recommendations provided therein are recommendations only and may or may not be realistic or feasible for the township of Horn-Payne specific circumstance, but will be considered and altered as appropriate based on the needs of the community moving forward and in alignment with both council's strategic plan and the recently completed service delivery review. Any further discussion on that motion, council? Okay, I'm going to put it to a vote. Those in favor? And any opposed? And that is carried. Okay, perfect. You're welcome to stay on our meeting, Matt, if you want. We're going to continue on, but and you're welcome to leave. That's no problem as well. Thank you so much for being part of our town council meeting.
Thank you so much. I'm going to step out. I got to put some hot dogs on the barbecue, so I think that's priority number one for me.
Right
but thanks
on.
so much for your time,
Enjoy.
guys. Take care. Have a great night.
Thanks, Matt. Have a good night.
Bye. Okay, council, we're moving on to item 8. Petitions, there's none. Disbursements, none. So we're up to managers' reports. If I can get a mover and a seconder to open the motion. John and Belinda. Moved by John Paroff, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the council, the corporation, the township of Horn-Payne does hereby acknowledge receipt of the manager's reports provided at the regular meeting of council held on Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. And our first report is our CAO report. I'll open the floor. Gail, do you want to speak to anything on your report first, or would you like to just field some questions if there is any?
I just have a couple of comments. I'd like to apologize because it was placed on the agenda only today. I been trying to work on the AMO delegations. They have to be in, well, they're supposed to be in today. I've got one in today and one still working on, so my apologies for that. Secondly, I have some sad news. I had an email from Morley Forster this afternoon, and he was just letting us know that the former mayor of Manitowoc, Andy Major, has passed away. So I don't know if some of you may have worked with him or met him. And then some good news to add on top of that was just at the end of the day, both Mayor Fort and I received an email from Minister of Municipal Affairs, Steve Clark, saying that the first phase of the COVID-19 reopening funding is being announced. So the Township of Horn-Payne is going to be receiving $65,600 to support our COVID-19 operating costs and pressures. We have to get a report back to them on how that money is spent in March of 2021. There will be an opportunity for municipalities to apply for a second phase of funding if their expenses are going to exceed, or if they think their expenses are going to exceed the amount that have been given. That application will have to go in by October the 30th, 2020. So that would be some really good planning that we'd have to have in there. The money is expected to come sometime in September, and any monies that out of the $65,600, if we haven't spent that amount of expenses yet, can be put away for future COVID-19 expenses that may come up in 2021. So that was kind of some good news. We're getting some funding. They did say that each municipality was going to get funding, but I just wasn't sure how it was going to play out because they seem to be focusing on their announcements about transportation and homeless shelters and things that we don't have. So I'm happy to see that it's that amount. Other than that, I'm happy to take questions on my report if anyone has any.
Okay, we'll open the floor. Thank you for those updates, Gail. And are we going to have a sympathy card that we can sign to send to the family? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So council can make arrangements to get in to sign for that. And I'll open the floor now to Gail if you have any questions, council, or comments. Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm looking forward to the Municipal Service Corporation review in September. I'm quite excited, looks positive, and I'll be looking forward to reading the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Drago. Any other comments for Gail's report? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Gail, so much. And we'll move on to our Public Works Manager's report. Dwayne Goodrow, would you like to speak to your report, Dwayne, or do you want to just take some questions?
I have nothing to add, but I'm open for questions.
Okay, great. Council, are there any questions for Dwayne and his report? I have a couple, Dwayne.
Okay.
I was noticing that the staff's going to be doing some training for the FOBs. I'm getting feedback from somebody. John, could you try turning off your mic? Maybe it'll stop. I don't know. Oh yeah, it stopped. Thank you, John. I was wondering for that training if Drago's up for it as well, because we have that facility in our emergency management plan. If we could be included in that training, or if that's been talked about.
It has not been talked about, but there's no issue. It's going to be training right in the main office and just basically how to program everything.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm just wondering what it would affect us if we were, like, if one of us had to facilitate something up there or help with staff so we're not lost, basically, is what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's no issue. I can incorporate somebody. It's not a problem.
Okay, okay. And the other thing was action item, the public, the airport operations. It says traffic is increasing at the airport. Is there a reason for that increase, or just more flights, or like, was there something going on in the community?
Well, it was increasing. Heart Gold started flying back in here again.
Oh, good news.
Kind of flattened out again this week, but we're doing better. More helicopters are coming in.
Okay.
Had to order more fuel.
Okay, great. Good to know. And the last question I had was for the liquid calcium and magnesium, the last action item on your report. So was that sufficient for this year for keeping the dust down? I'm just trying to get a understanding of how much of this we're going to need in the future and an ongoing. I don't know much about the dust maintenance.
Cheryl, I'm hoping it's going to be enough for the year. It looks like it's going to last. Hopefully one application every year. I'd like to do both that one and Government Lake for sure, and all those gravel spots in town. I like to use liquid calcium if we can.
Okay. And so did we put some out on Government Road as well this year?
I did put magnesium out on Government Road. Calcium on Becker, magnesium on Government.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware. Okay, those are all my questions. Any other questions from council? Thank you so much, Dwayne. Okay, I'm not seeing any further questions there. We'll move on then. And we have our final manager's report is our Economic Development Officer, Stacey Randell's report. Stacey, do you have any comments or want to speak to your report before I open it for questions?
You'll just see at the very beginning of my report that we hired the Economic Development Special Intern. So Michael McDonough started on August 4th. So that's very exciting. He's in training and mass orientation with all our many projects. So I'm excited to have him on board.
Okay, great. I would be open to have a meeting if you want to set that up where I can just welcome him to the community and meet him face to face.
Okay, I'll set that up.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to open the floor for questions. Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Actually, just to follow up on that, Mayor, through you, it'd be nice to have him one part of the meeting so everybody could see him. I mean, because it's COVID-19, I don't be chasing him around. I'd like to meet him as well and welcome him as person, as a citizen in this community. So maybe you could set up a next meeting for a few minutes, please.
So he's
Yeah,
actually, I think he's on the phone tonight, listening in. So he's definitely
on the phone.
Yes.
Well, welcome, and we'd love to see have you participate on a video meeting.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure if my microphone will work through here, but if it does, thank you all very much.
It does,
Yeah,
Michael.
we can hear you. Yes. Okay. So back to questions on the floor for the Economic Development Officer. I'm not seeing any. I just have one for you, Stacy, is just item, the official plan and zoning bylaw. It was the community consultation sessions for August. Is that still moving forward, or are we going to push that into September?
We are looking at pushing that to the end of September.
End of September? Okay. And are they still looking at trying to do some face-to-face or some sort of in-town at a facility?
That's what we're hoping. Gail and I, we encourage that because we can have 50 people in a facility. We discussed having a few separate sessions of people. If we have a lot of feedback, we can set up appointments, but we really want a face-to-face so people can come out and make comments that way.
Okay. Are we thinking maybe of using the arena, or where are we thinking?
We haven't really discussed the location. We talked that we could use the forum at the high school or the Legion. The arena is not a place I thought of, but that is a very good idea.
Okay, I'm just thinking because of the social distancing, but if we have masks on, we can be closer, correct?
We can.
Okay,
So
okay.
So with any space that we're going to look at, we're going to look at the space capacity of the room, divide that up by the the social distancing rules. So we'll comply with all the details for sure.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. Gail, did you want to speak to something?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know I got an email also today from Algoma District School Board saying that community use of the facilities is put on hold until further notice due to COVID-19. So just that won't be an option at this time, just so you know. And I did have one other resolution coming out of my, not really coming out of my report, but falling under my bailiwick, and it came out at the last meeting with regard to the hiring of a project manager for the MSC, Municipal Services Corporation. So just, you'll see that after the one that you've just done, just so you know where that's coming from. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Gail. Okay, well, that's great. And I formally invite Michael to our next meeting. We are going to be hosting a special meeting, and I am sure that if there's time at that, or there can be time at that meeting to have a few minutes and welcome him to our community at that meeting. And we can add it to the special meeting that we're setting tonight. And thank you, Michael, for being on the call.
Thank you so much. I sure do appreciate the warm welcome I've received from you and from everyone else that I've bumped into as well. It's been very nice.
Great. Okay, Council, I'm going to put the motion to vote. Those in favor to accept the reports as presented? And any opposed? That's carried. Okay, so this is the next resolution or motion is the one that Gail had just referred to about and it's in your package about if the MSC business plan comes back favorable, that we give the authority to hire a project manager. If I can get a mover and a seconder, and then I can read the motion and we can discuss if need be. Belinda and Peter. Okay, moved by Belinda Kistemaker, second by Peter Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the Council, the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain does hereby authorize the CAO clerk to advertise for a short-term temporary contract position of project manager to help establish a municipal service corporation for housing and to oversee the implementation of projects under that umbrella. Be it further resolved that the funding for this position will be taken from economic development funds provided by the Nuclear Waste Management Organization in 2019 that were set aside for projects such as this. Be it finally resolved that it is understood that this position will only be considered if the business case currently being completed by BDO Canada LLP illustrates that the initiative is financially feasible and sustainable for the township. Any further comments or question on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Through you, Mayor, to the CEO. What would be the key qualifications for this position, Gail? Thank you.
I'm thinking a business background would be great. Perhaps some real estate or housing background would also be beneficial for sure. But I would say business. Stacy, I don't know if you have anything else that you would think.
I think you covered it. I think business would be a big asset, and any real estate would help as well.
Thank you. Any other further questions on the motion or discussion? Okay, there being none, I'm going to put it to the vote. Those in favor? Okay, and any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, so now we're moving on to correspondence action items 11.1. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Drago and John. Moved by Drago Stefanik, seconded by John Paroff. Whereas the Council, the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain has received correspondence from the Airport Management Council of Ontario, AMCO, with regard to the ongoing lack of federal relief for airports, as well as the ongoing exclusion of airports operated by municipal, provincial, or territorial airports from federal relief programs for COVID-19, with particular reference to the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. And whereas AMCO is reaching out to municipally owned and operated airports without scheduled traffic or airports capital assistance program eligibility to submit a letter, template attached, as part of a writing letter campaign for Canada's small airports. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council, the Corporation of the Township of Hornpain does hereby direct Gail Jeremy, CAO Clerk or Designate, to complete the template letter and send it to Transport Minister Mark Garneau and Finance Minister Morneau in support of this initiative. Any question or conversation or discussion on the motion? I'm not seeing any, so we'll put it to a vote. Those in favor? Okay, and any opposed? There being none, that is carried. And we're moving on to 11.2, Ontario Clean Water Agency, wastewater, sorry, I'm not. Wastewater systems affluent regulations. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Peter. And a seconder, John. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Whereas the Federal Wastewater Systems Effluent Regulations, WSER, comes into force on January 1st, 2021 for wastewater systems with an average daily flow of less than 5,000 cubic meters, and the regulation states the annual average total residue chlorine, TRC, must be below 0.02 milligrams per liter on the effluent, and whereas the Hornpain wastewater treatment plant currently uses chlorine gas to provide disinfection of the effluent, and the average TRC at the plant across the last 5 years of operation was 0.73 milligrams per liter, and whereas in January 2020, the Township of Hornpain applied for funding for the wastewater dechlorination project through Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Green Infrastructure Stream, was unsuccessful in its application due to its non-critically with regard to health and safety, and will now have to cover the costs of this legislative requirement. And whereas, as an interim measure in order to meet the WSER regulation requirements coming into effect January 1st, 2021, the Ontario Clean Water Agency, Aqua, will be using dechlorination pucks at the wastewater outfall in summer 2020 until a permanent solution can be installed. This with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks approval. And whereas an engineering study has been completed and has determined that the best solution for dechlorination of Hornpain, my goodness, for Hornpain would be an ultraviolet disinfection system, as it leaves no lasting residual chemicals, has little effect. Oh my goodness, I apologize. I hope everyone is following along on their copy. Has little negative impact on the environment and has been identified as the most cost-effective method over the long term. Whereas Aqua has submitted a proposal for the management and completion of this project with an option to apply to Aqua for financing. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain, does hereby accept the proposal as recommended by the CAO clerk to complete the wastewater dechlorination project for the Hornpain wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $1,104,874. Be it resolved that the client service manager treasurer will investigate financing options to be brought back to council at the next meeting for approval, and that the CAO clerk is authorized to sign the necessary documents to complete the project. I open the motion for discussion. I apologize for that. Pre-reading and practicing doesn't help because I did do that one. Okay, so questions or discussions on the motion? Go ahead, Gail.
I just wanted to bring to your attention that Joanna Kirkbride's here on behalf of Aqua to answer any questions that council may have. So thanks, Joanna, for taking the time to join us tonight.
No problem.
Welcome,
My pleasure.
Joanna.
Thank you. It's nice to see everyone's smiley faces.
Yeah. Okay, so discussions or questions or conversation. Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mayor. At the estimated cost is $1.1 million. It was mentioned that the financing aspect will be looked at later. What will the actual cost will be by end of this project versus the $1.1 million with the financing being in place? You have any rough numbers?
That's our estimate. It does include a contingency in case it goes over or under. I mean, we anticipate that it'll be under by a little bit, and that's why we've broken it out between the township share and the loan amount. But, you know, it's hard to tell, right? The first phase is the engineering and design, and that'll give us a good indicator. So we'll know after phase one where the engineering and design costs are, and that can happen relatively quickly. So once it's approved to proceed, we can tender it out, and then they'll come back with quotes, and we'll know where we are based on the overall project cost, because we do have an estimate. I think it's about $130,000 for phase one.
Right.
I've broken out in the proposal, I broke it out as best we could into the different components of the overall project.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You're welcome.
Thank you. Just a further question on that. You were saying our portion, and I'm seeing that our direct contribution would be $165,028. So would we start with, we would cover the engineering costs and cover that, and then we could find out what we will actually have to borrow from that point?
Yeah, that's what I would recommend. Of course, it's up to council and the township on how they want to do that, but that's what I would recommend for two reasons. It's not known until the quotes come back. It might be a little bit less. The Aqua Loan Program financing through us is for under $1 million. So I tried to break it out so that we could keep, based on the project estimate costs of $939 under that component for the loan. And the second reason being, if another funding program becomes available for components of the project, if we've only done the engineering and design and we haven't started any other phases, you wouldn't be, you know, disqualifying yourself from applying to a funding program because you haven't started any phases of the project yet.
Do you foresee any funds opening before we get to those phases?
Well, I mean, there is talk. We have had meetings and heard about, and it's all speculative, but that the government is likely going to introduce funding for infrastructure to stimulate the economy because of the pandemic. We don't know that it's going to be water and wastewater related. It could be in other areas. We don't know if this project would fall into that, but there is sort of a talk amongst people that they think that the government might go that way.
Okay.
So we do have people at Aqua and, you know, in our region where we actively look and speak with different funding ministries or programs to make sure that we're kept in the loop, so to speak, of anything that might be coming out. And we're always happy to share that with our municipal partners. So.
Thank you.
You're
Any
welcome.
other questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Peroff.
Thank you, Mayor. So Joanne, I guess, so how soon after council has come up with a decision can the project move forward?
Well, right away, we can start. So I attached a schedule on, it's on the last page of the proposal. And as soon as the notice to proceed, which is signing the proposal, is given, or the council resolution, we can start collecting the information for preparing the RFP. So because of the dollar amount, we have to follow the procurement rules. So we issue the RFP for the design, engineering and design, and that it might take a week or two to pull it all together. We have most of the information because we applied for the funding program in January. So, and then it usually is posted for a couple of weeks. We give about 8 weeks for all of that to come back. And once we have the tenders or the proposals or bids back, we'll bring those to the Township of Hornepayne and meet with you and go through them and kind of, you know, get your assessment, provide our recommendation, and then kind of move forward from there. One thing that I will mention, the regulatory change that's coming into effect that's sort of driving all of this, the WISA regulation, wastewater effluent, comes into effect January 1st. Patrick is going, Albert, the senior ops manager for Aqua, is going to conduct some trials to put in place an interim system starting in January so that you're within compliance of the regulation. And just something simple that he'll put together. You know, I'm not Patrick, but I will call it like a basket with dechlor pucks, so to speak. Something simple just to meet, and he'll conduct some testing as well to make sure that it does fall under the the wastewater is dechlorinated to fall within the regulatory requirements, and then have some data available in case, you know, we're questioned or you are, and we can share that with you as well.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
That did. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any further questions from council? John, do you have another question? Go ahead, Councillor Peroff. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, and it goes to basically council or the treasurer if she's online. the estimated cost, like, yeah, December 31st, 2020, 21, October 21 payments. How is this, what effect is it going to have on our budget, and or is some of this already covered, or because there's a cost to us regardless, right?
Yes, go ahead, Gail.
So the treasurer is on vacation this week, John, but I'm anticipating that we would likely borrow for that amount of money. I haven't discussed that with her, but I'm anticipating, because we have money from the OSIF formula already set aside for our airport project. So I'm assuming that we would be borrowing for that. She'll be back Monday, though. I can double check with her.
Yeah. So it'd be an additional cost, like there's nothing in the reserve for this?
I don't know for sure. We do have some money in reserves, but I think we'd have to think about how we want to spend that before we, you know, and maybe that would be the case. I don't know, but I really can't answer for her. She has a much better beat on that than I do.
No, thank you very much. I just want to put a heads up for that, I guess.
Thank you for that, Gail and John. I do have another question for the timeline. Joanna, when can we still inject if funding comes available? So say, is it before actual boots to the ground May 2021, or I'm just wondering where, like if there's something that opens up.
Thank you, Cheryl. That's a great question, and it's something that I did want to mention. With the loan, so applying for, I've submitted the request through Aqua. It goes through like a credit committee, but within that request, I built in phased installments. So if the loan is approved, it's not all of the money is not loaned at once. It's done in phases to match the payment dates, but also typically with any funding program, when it's announced, some of the requirements in it are that the project can't have been initiated in any way. Mm-hmm. So construction could kind of started. And what we're going to do is structure the work to almost, where we can, to almost be mini projects, so that if something does come up in the middle of construction, but we can, you know, we've separated it, all the components of it out into little mini projects, you may be eligible to apply for parts of the project. So we're going to structure it as much as we can around that. The other request that I put on, and I've already spoken with the credit committee at Aqua about it, is if you do receive funding this September, December, at any stage along the way, can you cancel the full amount of the loan? Like, so you wouldn't need that because it's phased in payments, and you can. Okay. It's very flexible. The Aqua loan program, because we're not a bank, it's really ideally set up as a way to support our municipalities with infrastructure upgrades. So it's pretty flexible, where they'll say, okay, and then they'll just change the total loan amount to whatever it was over whatever term you chose.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council? Okay, I just have one more question. Actually, I'm going to refer it to Gail, though. Is Gail, I know we're only allowed to stay within a certain threshold of payments for the municipality, and we have several projects coming ahead. I'm wondering if we look at the bigger picture to ensure that we're staying, that we can't, I don't want to say yes to one thing and mm-hmm. say no to another. That sort of, we'll look at that full scope when we decide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I know we're way under what we're allowed to do right now. And yes. For this particular project, it'll be completed next summer. So the money or the big portion of the money that we're going to need for the airport project is the following year. So for those two projects, they shouldn't clash at all, but definitely we'll have to look at that when Melissa gets back.
Yeah, because my thinking is if we do show more of a long-term plan over the next, say, 1 to 5 years of these projects that are going to be rolled out in our municipality, that if it may be able to put some pressure that they open up a funding envelope that this would fit into early in the year, that we might be able to say, like, we need help with this because we're going to have to borrow for these funds. Maybe
Right.
leverage that.
Sure.
Okay. So just a final call out for council if you have any further questions. Thank you for being on the call with us tonight. Appreciate
No
seeing
problem.
you, Joanna.
Yes, my pleasure. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Thanks, Joanna. Good night.
Thank you.
And I'm going to put that resolution to a vote. So council, those in favor? Okay, and any opposed? And that's carried. And we're moving on to 11.3, Ontario Clean Water Agency, the quarterly operational report. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Drago. And John, did I see your hand up? I put my head down there for a second. Okay, yes. Thank you. Moved by Drago Stefanik, second by John Paroff. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain, does hereby acknowledge receipt of the Ontario Clean Water Agency Aqua Quarterly Report Q2, April to June 2020 for the Hornpain Water Treatment and Distribution System, Wastewater Treatment and Collection System. Any comments or discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Yeah, good report. I noticed on their page 3, they had quite a few problems, mechanical and alarm systems in month of May and June. More than usual, I would assume, Gail or Dwayne. I mean, chlorine level alarm, raw water pumping station problem. I mean, seems more than usual from reading all the reports previous. Am I correct in saying that?
You're muted, Gail. Oh, there you go.
I know they've been having some communication problems that they're working on, Drago, so it may be related to that. I haven't heard from Pat in about a week or so. He was kind of keeping us up to date on that. So we can check with him and see how that's going.
Thank you.
Any other further questions from council or comments? Okay, I'm going to put the motion to a vote. Those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? And that's carried. And we're moving on to 11.4, Sophia Perlman 2020 Culture Days Hub proposal. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Belinda and Peter. Moved by Belinda Kistemaker, second by Peter Kistemaker. We are, as council, via resolution number 2019-549 dated November 20th, 2019, and resolution number 2020-259, copies attached, expressed in principle support for the community-based arts programming, including a mini symposium under the guidance of Sophia Perlman, founder of the Hornpain Community Arts Project. And whereas Ms. Perlman has provided council with a collaboration proposal for 2020 Culture Days with the premises that the township register online as a Cultural Days hub to which partner organizations could add their activities. And whereas Ms. Perlman's core group is committed to the organization, running and oversight of the celebrations, including mentoring of local youth and the involvement and support of other institutions, including, but not limited to, the Hornpain Public Library, supporting performing arts in rural communities, Spark, Algoma University, Mohawk College, and the Art Gallery of Hamilton. And whereas the majority of interaction activities will be electronic or digital due to COVID-19, and whereas there will be minimum staff time allocated to the project, and whereas Ms. Perlman's commitment to the community over the last several years has been beneficial for many reasons and has enriched the cultural and artistic experiences of local residents. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council, the Corporation of the Township of Hornpain, does hereby agree to be a collaborative partner for the Centre of Ontario Culture Days Hub and to provide in-kind support to the project, details to be worked out between Ms. Perlman and the municipal staff. Any discussion or comments on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I concur. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Gail.
I just wanted to also let council know Sophia was kind enough to join tonight to take any questions, and I'm not sure if she has any comments that she wants to add. Hi, Sophia, and thanks for taking the time out.
Hi, Sophia. Do you have any comments that you'd like to add to your proposal?
I would prefer to respect council's time and ask if council has any questions. I know there was a lot of material attached, and Mayor Fort, thank you for being the person who had to read that whole entire thing. Thank you for your time, everybody.
No problem. Any questions from council? I think we're good. And we'll put it to a vote. Oh, go ahead.
Mayor Fort, if I may just comment on two things very briefly. I'd just like to acknowledge Gail, the CAO and clerk in particular for the unbelievable amount of time and mentorship that she put into helping me put that proposal together. I am learning more and more every day, and we've had a lot of conversations about how we speak different languages, and I am so grateful to you for continually coming to the table with so much collaborative spirit and respect for the benefit of having both languages at the table. And it was interesting to hear the whole asset management report. Do you know how many reports outside my area of expertise I have slogged through about your community in the last 2 years? I read the strategic report that Nordic did, whatever year that was. I read the most recent service delivery report. Holy cow, that was no wonder you guys were going insane that week. Thank you for giving me as much time as you did when that was all going down. And it's outside my area of expertise, but it informs what I do and what I know. In the asset management plan, they're taking, from what I can tell, stock of what the actual physical infrastructure of your community is. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And we'll manage it as we go on with the data as we put in and learn the system.
And that seems like a continuation of the work that I've seen happening over time through those various strategic reports. And yeah, there's some big scary numbers, and holy cow, I don't know how you guys do it on a regular basis. But with respect for your time, my point is there hasn't been a single item on your agenda today that I don't think actually relates to the proposal that I put before you. And I don't want to take up time at this council meeting while you're considering this, but I don't know you all individually well enough to know who holds which portfolios of that big long list of things that I just saw presented to you. I don't know who's in charge of breaking down what. I've had the pleasure of working with Stacy with the EDO. I accidentally met your new hires partner on Twitter this week, and she seems wonderful. But I do believe that there is a meaningful argument for how continuing to investigate this stuff can get the arts and culture sector interested in the maintenance and development of the exact same assets that you're talking about, firstly. And secondly, I would say that in your asset management proposal where you're talking about assets, any language that you see from us, you'll see the word capacity. Because essentially what we've been doing over the 2 years is like an asset management report of Hornpain's arts and cultural human capacity, if that makes sense to someone with a business mind. You have so much cultural capacity in your community, it's astounding, and we're grateful. So I just wanted to explain that you'll see in our report, we are in a major funding barrier, and we do not want to take money from you guys for what you're doing. We do believe that there is a way, especially with the school not being open to community use, that having support for cultural programming could provide support through the library or the township or whichever partner to provide things like daytime programming to support parents who cannot have their kids at home because they have to go back to work. We recognize that there is an urgent need to recognize the needs of families, and we would love to have the opportunity to explore through whatever phase of reopening you're in, how this can be of urgent support to you guys in September and October. Yeah, it was cold to do culture days outside when there was an indoor option, but with no indoor option, I saw what you guys were capable of when people were on strike in February. So maybe we can handle bits of outdoor time in October. The one challenge we have is we found a grant that could pay 5 young women from the community about $1,000 each, 4 of whom are parents, 1 of whom is a young artist who's actually transitioning from the community to a larger community. We are committed to applying for that grant in collaboration with them. So we're continuing to looking for investment for the community, but we have not found funding for ourselves. And I am unfortunately in the position of not being able to underwrite my own position because my teaching position has been suspended until January. However, the one change from the proposal that we've sort of decided on is Tristan is going to stay in Toronto and continue to support remotely. And I have begun talking to my partner about how I can simply come up and figure out my employment as I go, so that whatever phase of reopening you guys are in, I'm willing to commit to the community until the end of October. And because if I believe that arts and culture can make that possible in small communities, I need to put my money where my mouth is. And I have the support from the community to keep my expenses low. So I'm sorry, I'm an artist in a time of COVID, and that's all I can bring to the table tangibly. But I think you have unbelievable human resources, and I'm willing to bring my own to the table to explore them. So thank you for your time. And my only request is that if you approve this motion, then I would just ask that a motion be put forward at the special meeting to allow me to work with whoever the most appropriate person is to determine what safe quarantine would be based on the various travel options available to me, and how I can do this in a way that's respectful to everyone's feelings about my being a Southerner. So thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you for that, Sophia, and we would welcome you to our community. I don't even think we need a motion of who you'd work with. That's a delegation to Gail, our CAO. She can definitely set that up. That's all in her realm.
Sorry, Gail.
That's okay. That's and I want to just highlight that if you do go on our website, the Township of Hornpain's passed their strategic plan of council back in February. And if you go to page 27 of that, there's arts, culture, and recreation plans and strategies that are slotted for 2021 into 2022. So this is coming for our community into Hornpain, and we definitely want to continue working with you, Sophia. So I'm going to put the motion for a vote. Those in favor, council? And any opposed? And that's carried. Thank you for being online with us. And not just today, we've noticed you've been on a few meetings of ours.
Thank you for giving me the time to watch, because I only want this to ever be with you. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, council, we're moving on to correspondence information only. If I can get a mover and a seconder, and then we'll open up that part for discussion. Peter and John. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain, does hereby acknowledge receipt of the correspondence information only package attached to the agenda at the regular meeting of Council held on Wednesday, August 12, 2020. And now I open the motion up for discussion or any discussions in that the 6 items in that section. And it doesn't look like there's anyone that has any topics they want to discuss. Okay, I'm going to put the motion to a vote. Those in favor? Okay, any opposed? And that's carried. And 13, donations, there's none. 14, conferences, seminars, training, none. 15, committee reports, and we're on to 16, new and other business. So 16.1 is the COVID-19 CCG update. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Belinda. And Peter. Okay, I'm not sure, are we putting this motion of the electronic meetings after this COVID update, Gail?
Yes, the electronic meetings is coming under 16.3.
Oh,
That resolution is
16.3.
under 16.3. Sorry about that.
Sorry. No, that's okay. I put the two of them together.
So, because there isn't one for this one, for the 16.1.
Yes, okay. So we'll just continue with the update, and I have the motion sitting there, and I will leave it until 16.3.
Okay, so I forgot my notes at work for the COVID-19 update, but our CCG meetings are continuing bi-weekly. There's really been no action or updates from the OPP or the ambulance, which is good. It means that there's no specific issues with regard to COVID-19 with either of those. The hospital has been continuing their and actually expanding their visits to the long-term care. They can now have visits inside. They're also continuing, I think, with outside and window visits, but they can do inside visits now as well. The outside visits no longer require testing for the visitors, so that's good. The testing itself, I don't think it's increased a lot. It didn't sound, Allison didn't really have the figures for us at the time of the meeting, but I think it's sort of like 5-ish a week that are being done. And I think it's people mostly that are just maybe concerned that they might have come into contact with somebody, like nobody, I don't think that's gone in there really ill. We are, of course, pushing the masks. Wearing of masks, and we've put some stuff on our website, and Mayor Fort did a community update last week, as well as a Facebook Live on Friday, and reiterated some of those things. There's a Facebook Live upcoming this Thursday evening at 7 with Mayor Fort and Dr. Joannou together. So they'll take questions, and whether live questions or emailed in questions ahead of time. I don't think there's, the only thing I wanted to mention was on the ministry update call yesterday, I found it interesting that they were talking, somebody asked a question about airborne versus droplets for the virus. And I thought this might be something that you might want to discuss in your Facebook Live, now, this wasn't an official Ministry of Health issuance or whatnot, but it was a Ministry of Health representative speaking about it. And he just said, based on the science and based on discussions he's been involved with over the last few months, the virus, although the incubation period is long, which makes it dangerous for people, and it's often asymptomatic, which makes it dangerous. And it's a strong virus in the sense that it's really attacks the body. It's quite easily made. So he was stressing that the washing of the hands and the wiping of the surfaces, even just with simple soap and water, a weak bleach solution or a Lysol solution, will render the virus inert because of the membrane on the outside is soft. So I think that made me look at things differently, because we tell people to wash their hands, or we think of washing your hands because it's kind of just a sanitary thing to do. But when you actually put it down to the molecular level, when you're actually rendering this virus inert just by disturbing it, if it's left to lay, it can lay, depending on the surface, up to a few days. But if you're just simply wipe with soap and water, even it cuts it way down. And I think just putting it in those terms and talking about how the virus isn't so strong in that in that light. I think that made a difference for me thinking about it, and it might make a difference for other people. I can't think of anything else. I don't know if I've forgotten anything from the last meeting. Cheryl or Drago?
Do you have any comments that you'd like to add, Drago? Go ahead.
No, Gail did an excellent job covering the meeting. Thank you. Well done.
Okay, yeah, I have no comments on that, except I'm looking forward to the live tomorrow night. I want to extend a tremendous thank you out to Dr. Joanno for agreeing to do the live. And really, my take on it, Council, and I've said this to Gail, and is that I just really would like our community to be prepared, and let's not drop our guard, because the virus is alive and well out there. And just like Gail was saying, that we can stop it dead in its tracks by cleaning the surfaces, washing our hands, and that sort of thing. And I really do think that, especially at our grocery store, and that there's the ongoing procedures have really helped our community. And I just want to see that continued as we move into the fall season, and then again in the winter. We just we need to keep our community healthy, and I think we're doing a good job of it so far. So let's continue doing that. And it's been a long haul so far, and we have to kind of encourage each other to keep our stamina up on this. So, and that's all I have. And you can tune into the Facebook Live if you want, or you can tell people that that's happening. And is that everything? So there is no resolution for that. The COVID-19 electronic meetings resolution is 16.3. So we'll move on to 16.2, public access and usage of Moonlight Lake raw water source. Would you like me to speak to this, Gail, or?
Yeah, I think if you don't mind, sure.
Yeah, okay. So this was brought to my attention by a community member. I asked them to put in a form because there's not any good signage out there. There's no real policy on what we allow on Moonlight Lake. And it is our raw water source. Actually, today I took a drive out there to see, because Gail and I were in discussions this morning, and there's a boat launch out there, and I didn't know that. So I went out, I took a ride, and there was citizens out there using the road, and they didn't have any idea why I was there, and that is exactly what they said. They asked me, why are motorized boats allowed on this lake? And so I thought that was interesting, and I said, well, that's why I'm here. I'm just trying to see what's out here. And there definitely needs to be better signage. For one, I'm not sure what what councils feel on what type of where we want to move forward. And my understanding, Gail, in the past there was there's no issue from Aqua's standpoint for motorized boats or anything on the lake. The one issue that I have thought of, and there was some litter out there at the boat launch area, was about increased usage means increased litter in the lake. So I am concerned that I don't want to ruin perception of our water, that it's fresh water, and although we do clean the water thoroughly before we drink it, that's the discussion of what should we do as councils. So I open that to the council floor. Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Hear me okay?
Yep. Yes, I can.
I think educating the public, number one, and improve the signage. And I'd be all for getting rid of let's say gas motors, but as far as the pollution for the raw water, it is a good fishing spot, a recreation spot that's close to Hornpain. I'd be all for, say, limited to the use of kayaks, canoeing, and fishing with electric motors.
Okay. That's definitely a good compromise. John, did you have comments?
Yeah, it's similar to what Councillor Peter there was talking about. I always thought it was no motorboats on that lake. I thought there was that sign there. Well, maybe I'm mistaken, but I'm all for putting a sign up there. I don't want to see gas-powered motors or whatever on there.
Okay, so I'm thinking if we are going to move in that direction, we'll probably have to have a policy and find out exactly what we can limit access to the lake, Gail.
Yeah, I think I would research that a little bit and see where our authority lies, number one. Just so you know, that there isn't one sign out there right now, and it says, notice this lake is the sole water source for the township of Hornpain drinking water. Please treat with respect, Mayor and Council. So it doesn't specify anything about motorized boats or motorized vehicles of any sort. I mean, you can still, I would say you can still put signage up whenever you want. It's just a matter of whether we can really enforce it, you know, but I think a lot of people would respect that signage, you know, make them think twice about going on there with motorized vehicles, or however you want to word that. But definitely I would check with the MNR as well, just to make sure, and also touch base with Aqua again, and just kind of get input from all the parties.
Right. Does that does it fit into any of our plans that we have coming up? Like I'm looking at our strap, like, so because we already have a lot of work that's being done. Like we could I'm looking that we're adopting a wastewater master plan.
I wonder, yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I wonder if I don't know if that would really, if it could go that far, or if it doesn't really affect that plan until it gets to the raw water pumping station, but it's certainly something, like, it seems like it would sort of fit in there. That's what came to mind for me. But in the meantime, I mean, that's 2022, 2023. I would think that you could put up signage whenever you want.
Okay.
With, you know, whatever it is that you would like to express. And then I'd like to find out where that boat launch came from, or how it originated. And it's not ours, like the township didn't put it in there. At least as far as I'm aware, we don't maintain it or anything.
Yes,
so I'd like to investigate that.
And when I did go out and take a look at it, I would refer to Dwayne on this. I'm not sure how much. I didn't find that it was like it's, oh, I don't know. It's very what's the word? Yes, thank you, Gail. It's yes. So from council's, oh, go ahead, Councillor Kistemaker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with all the points discussed. I'm not going to repeat it. I think maybe the White River is in a similar situation, Gail. I think what the would be a good another sort of avenue to give you an input how they're handling, because they were roughly built the same time, our facilities. So they might run into the same problem, how to decide that there's facility should operate. Thank you.
So are we good to leave that for further research, Gail, for yourself, and then we'll look at it again at council, or if there's an update of what we can implement?
You can, but I would say that you could put signage up if you want. We could get some signage going if you want.
Okay, I'm good with that. You don't need a resolution or anything for that. No? Okay.
So I don't know what kind of, like, you want no motorized vehicles, including, like, I mean, we could say boats, but do you mean snow machines as well? Or is that going too far? How do you want to word that?
I'm not sure. Is there any input on that, Councillor Kistemaker? And I see 3.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Simple, no motorized. Summer, winter, fall, spring, none. Anything with gas, fuel, diesel should not be on there. Thank you.
Okay, so we can figure something out. You know, maybe check with a couple of the municipalities and see what's out there.
Okay,
Maybe
and
at least get that up.
Councillor Kistemaker.
Respectfully, my point on that would be electric motors in the summer. I have no issue with snowmobiles in the winter. That's something that we could look at, but I mean, there's a barrier in between, other than the actual snow machine going through the lake to the ice. It's possible the contamination, but I could be wrong.
Okay,
It might just be simpler just to say no motorized vehicles, and then we don't have to get into the nitty gritty.
okay. John, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think I was going to repeat kind of what Councillor Peter was saying. I'm not sure not allowing snowmobiles on there in the summer or in the winter, it's going to be pretty difficult. Because a lot of them scoot across that. I don't even snow machine, but a lot of them go on that lake. But
Okay. Dwayne, you had a comment?
If you put no motorized vehicle, it takes electric motors out too, trolling motors. That'd be gas or diesel powered, something like that, wording like that.
Okay.
no combustible, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we can start with that. I'm in agreement with Dwayne about the no gas powered. I don't even know if they make a diesel powered, maybe a propane powered motor. I do not know, but or what John's saying, a combustible engine unit on the lake. To that effect, is council in agreement with that wording? Go ahead, Councillor Kistemaker.
Yeah, but as long as we would all agree on the seasons as well. Just like a blanket statement will cut out too much, I believe, because a lot of people do utilize the lake for recreation purposes safely and without endangering the environment.
Right. So go ahead, Gail.
Just, it's going to be more of a, in my mind, it's going to be more of a respect thing or a courtesy thing, because how will we enforce it? You know, so maybe it's not realistic to think that you could chase all these snow machines down either. I don't know.
So do we want,
how will we enforce it?
yeah, do we want to start with trying to enforce the summer boats, motorized boats on there? We'll start with that. And then we can get some more research on whether the snow machines actually affect the lake.
I don't think you could enforce it because we don't have a bylaw, but we could put signage.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Peroff.
Well, I'm thinking just putting up a sign without being able to enforce it is just going to put the wrong picture in somebody's mind. I would support maybe if, Gail, you could make a phone call to White River or another township that has this kind of a issue and see if there's anything that they suggest. Because I don't think we're going to handle it right here because we don't have a lot of information.
Well, and I suspect that's why whatever council was that put that signage up, I suspect that's why they worded it the way they did, was because how do you enforce it?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking it's going to be more of a, I don't know if it will be an enforcement thing. I mean, I'll certainly check and see what other people do and what they have, but I think it's going to be more of a, you know, so please do not use or whatnot. I don't know.
Okay, Councillor Kistemaker, go ahead, Belinda.
When our official plan comes into being and we have the zoning going on, will that help with the particulars on whether they can use the water source or not, and maybe help us identify on what can go on there and what can't?
I would think that it wouldn't, but I'm not really sure. It's something I think that we'd have to check with Sarah on.
Okay.
Okay. So I think we're in agreement that we do want some signage up there. We're not exactly sure what we can put. I am in agreement with Councillor Peroff that whatever we put needs to be either enforceable or we highly recommend the no usage of those things until we find out what we can legally do. Go ahead, Drago.
Yeah, thanks. I think what the word that Gail was looking for is an honor system. So if a person has some honor, they will not go on there. Thank you.
Yeah. I would definitely like to see some signage about the litter, keeping it clean, that sort of thing, so that we're showing that we're being proactive in our putting that sort of signage up. Shannon, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that when we are doing the signage, we have to think about the audience. So we have to make sure that we're getting to people that can like read like all different like ages, right? Like some of like students who might be on snow machines or whatever, boats, they might not know what combustible means. So we have to think of using like wordings that's able for everybody to read.
Right, accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so I'm thinking that's enough direction right now, Gail, because we really don't have any more information from other what other communities are doing.
Yeah, we'll do some research and see what we can find and see if we can come up with something, even if it, you know what, even if we put something up in the meantime, signs aren't very expensive, and if you want to change it 6 months down the road or 2 months down the road, then we can do that.
Right, and I think it does fit more thoroughly with our water planning ahead. And I don't want us to get bogged down on what we're doing now and getting sidetracked. We have it slotted for 2022. And if it's not an issue with Aqua, they're not seeing a foreseeable issue with our water source, then we do have time to get the right research done first. Okay, if there's any further comments, or we can move on, Council. Okay, moving on then to 16.3. So I do have a mover and a seconder, moved by Belinda Kistemaker, second by Peter Kistemaker. Whereas COVID-19 is having unprecedented major impacts on many aspects of how we conduct our daily lives, including the operations and the deliveries of municipal business. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council, the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain does hereby agree to continue with electronic council meetings for the remainder of the year 2020. Be it further resolved that Council will reevaluate the council meeting format for the year 2021 at a future meeting. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favor? Okay, any opposed? And that's carried. And on to 16.4, setting a special meeting. This was the one that we had pushed back after our in camera. So 16.5, surplus equipment, 36 Fifth Avenue. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Drago and Peter. My pen just ran out. Moved by Drago Stefanik, second by Peter Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the Council, the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain does hereby declare the chattels and equipment as identified on the attached list and currently located in the building known as 36 Fifth Avenue as surplus property, and does hereby direct the Client Services Manager Treasurer to place it up for public sale immediately. Any comments, questions, or discussion on the motion? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to put it to a vote. Those in favor? Okay, any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, so moving on to 16.6, demolition contract. And if I can get a mover and a seconder, please. John? And a seconder? Peter? Okay, moved by John Paroff, second by Peter Kistemaker. Whereas a request for quotations, RFQ, for demolition services was issued on January 14th, 2019, and the contract awarded to the successful proponent on March 6, 2019. And whereas the contract expired July 31st, 2020, and the work has not been commenced at that time. And whereas Council wishes to reconsider the handling of this project to ensure resources are being used in the most efficient manner for municipal purposes at this point in time. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council, the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain does hereby agree to, and there's 3 options listed. Option 1 is to extend the contract deadlines and have the contractor perform the demolitions as rewarded. 2 is reissue the request for quotation of demolition services. 3 is reallocate the funds that were set aside for demolition towards the purchase of equipment. Be it further resolved that Council does hereby authorize the CAO clerk to complete all necessary work and to sign all necessary documents pertaining to this project on behalf of the municipality. Any discussion from Council? And there is your staff report that is attached. Go ahead, Councillor Paroff.
Thank you. Is there a reason why none of the work has begun?
Who should I direct that to?
Gail
Dwayne?
or Dwayne or whoever, anybody that can answer it.
Yeah, no, I wasn't asking you, John, sorry.
I just was giving Dwayne a chance to see if he wanted to jump in, but I don't think there was, I guess he was doing other work in the bush of some sort. I'm not exactly sure what he does, but I know he was approached several times over the last year, several months, you know, and had set dates where he was going to start and it didn't happen. So Dwayne, I don't know if you can expand on that, but I don't think there was any big catastrophe that happened that the work couldn't be done. It just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back.
No, Gail, you hit the nail on the head there. The only thing he come up with when COVID first started, we held him off for a bit. Other than that, he had plenty of time to start, and he's been more opportunities to start it.
Okay, one question I do have is, I'm just thinking of this now. Do we have any policies that are what we do when a contract is expired that we've awarded? Is there anything in our database on that? Because my concern is that if we don't follow a set protocol, we're going to open ourselves up for comment.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any contracts that this has happened with before. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but trying to think back, I don't think I've been in this situation before myself.
Okay. Belinda, you had a question, go ahead, or a comment?
Yeah, did he ask for another extension?
No, I got a phone call the other day, just checking to see if it was on the agenda, because when I was on vacation, I gave direction to let him know that it was going to be coming up for further discussion. And so I got a phone call to see if it was on for discussion. I said, yes, it is. I offered the meeting link and they said, no, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure it was on there. The comment was, if it goes back out to retender, that he likely would not resubmit a quote, but there was no ask for an extension or anything, not to me anyways. Dwayne, was there anything to you?
Not really. He just wanted to know when I told him we had to ask for an extension to the council, that he wanted to know if he could organize it quicker to have the extension on an earlier date than today. That's the only comment that I had from him.
He wanted to have the discussion. He wanted the council to have the discussion before the regular meeting. Is that it?
Correct.
Okay, and I did not get a request for that from him.
Go ahead, Councillor Kistemaker. Peter?
I'd say due to time constraints, as well as looking forward into investing into our community and into our future, I'm going to start this off by saying I would like my vote to go toward reallocate the funds towards an excavator. Start doing some of the work ourselves, and I believe that over the course of time, if you don't look at it as a cost, look at it as an investment, and we will reclaim all that money and we will be further ahead.
Okay, so item number 3, option 3. Yeah. My concern is that we don't have a process in place for this. And really at this point, I feel like because it has gone over, and Gail, remind me, did we have multiple bidders on this contract?
We did. We had, let me just see, I have that with me. 5 or 6 anyway.
Yeah, so just as Gail is looking at that, it's I'm just not sure of, because we always have to be thinking that we're protecting the municipality as the entity of itself. And if we're not conducting our business in an efficient, proper manner, and then extending contracts without a process in place, I think that could open us up to issues because we don't have a process in place.
There were
Go ahead,
4 other proponents.
Right. Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would be looking at number 2 or number 3. We waited long enough as it is. Nothing was done. So, I mean, Public Works Manager could give us a breakdown. How many houses per year you could handle within house, and then, or we could re-tender, because there's other companies that are also submitted a tender for this project. So that's my dilemma as far as legality of it. Should they re-tender so they have an opportunity to apply for the job again, or should we go to number 3 and do this? That's the question I have, which I don't have an answer to.
Right, and we do have different a situation now. When we put this tender out, we didn't have our new Public Works Manager working. So it's like the municipality's strengths and the way we go about business has changed too. Even with our SDR, we've looked at ways like what we can bring in-house to save our residents and tax payers money, right? So it's a different environment we are in today than we were in January 2019 when we put the tender out. So I guess I'll ask Dwayne a question on behalf of council, and not to put you on the spot, Dwayne. If there's no way you can answer this, that's fine. And I'm not trying to. Is it feasible that we could take down a certain number of properties every year?
Yes,
I'm
for
sure there's going to be training and that involved. We're not, council is not expecting, I speak on behalf of council as the mayor, we're not expecting this to happen overnight. That's not, we understand there would be some waiting involved.
With the 2, if we pick up an excavator and a dump truck of some sort, we could probably get most of them done in 1 year. With the small dump truck we have right now, it'd take a lot longer to haul it to the landfill.
Okay. Is there any opportunity, is a dump truck in this size something that could be rented? Or do we have to purchase?
There's always an option to rent. I don't have the rates right now, but they won't be cheap, that's for sure.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Peroff, and then Councillor Kistemaker. John?
Thank you. I was kind of thinking the same line. If we reallocate some funds for the township to buy some equipment that would help in that aspect, we could use that equipment throughout the township. So something to consider, I think.
Okay, thank you, John. Belinda, go ahead.
With the excavator, if we had the funds to purchase an excavator, which I think that we do now, the possibility, and if we can always hire a person with a dump truck if we have to.
Right.
It's another possibility. The other thing I have a huge concern on is we actually needed those houses down because it's part of all our planning that we're doing. It's for the municipal corp, it's for everything. It's for all the planning that we've been doing. If we don't get these houses down, it's just another thing that's gonna affect our projects. So it's a shame.
Yes, I totally agree. I am going to totally reiterate what Belinda just said. I'm in agreement. It's if we're moving into year 3 of our planning and that sort of thing, and we have to reallocate and strain staff in other areas, that it gets challenging. So so I think we're all on board with either 2 or 3. What would council need for us to make a decision of how we could relocate the funds? I'm thinking it'd take a couple of months to get a good report together for that, Gail.
Sorry, just had a comment about option number 2. I think that you're going to get really high prices come in if you post that job.
Okay.
You'll get higher than you did before.
It might put us out.
Yeah, like I don't know if it would, I honestly don't know if it would be worth doing that.
Okay. Okay. I think on a total, it seems like council's pretty much in agreement. Let's reallocate the funds and purchase our own equipment. It's just deciding what we're going to purchase and having a plan laid out for that so that we can end up training staff and that sort of thing. Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik, and then Councillor Peroff.
After listening to everyone, I agree with number 3. However, before we make any purchases, I want to see a full financial report, the cost of equipment, at least 3 costs for each piece of equipment, and what staff needs to be trained, how much already trained to. I mean, I want to see the whole critical flow, and not just let's go buy a piece of equipment and say, gee, guys, what do we do next? So I want a full plan, please. Thank you.
I'm in complete agreement with you, Drago. Go ahead, John. Councillor Peroff.
Sorry, Councillor Stefanik there just stole my thunder.
Oh. So, Gail, you and your staff will have to come up with a good plan so that we can see how we're reallocating. And then I know for myself, I'd like to see a plan of realistically how many houses can come down. I am looking even beyond into the 3-year mark, that when properties, if say the properties we currently have could be taken down over that term, that when a property comes into our for our disposal, when it becomes ours, that we could immediately take it down as we move into the future. If we have the equipment, there'd be no waiting. It would be assess the property, either we resell it or we take it down. And that plays into our municipal service corporation housing strategy. So I'm going to go to Drago and then Gail. Go ahead, Drago.
Just a final comment. I mean, when you're looking at excavator, what a wonderful purchase, because we could do our digs for water agency as opposed to getting somebody from Hearst costing us travel and the cost. So that would be on the, I presume, the length of the excavator or the reach, whatever it is.
Right, right. Go ahead, Gail, and then to Dwayne.
So I was just going to say that this all plays into the way that we're heading for future planning anyway, with all the long-term planning, the asset management plan, and thinking about every decision we make, how it affects, how it's going to impact the future. So I think that we're kind of already starting to remember that we got to think that way, you know, and I think it's becoming, I mean, it's all very new, obviously, but I think even with council, with staff members, I just see that tendency is starting to just happen kind of naturally now. So I just want to say that I think that that's a good idea from everybody, and I think that it's a good sign that we're all kind of, you know, looking into the future more than we ever have before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Dwayne, you had a final comment. Thank you, Gail.
Just have a little short list of things we can do with an excavator. Culvert installs, better job doing culvert installs, ditching on Becker Road, Government Road, M&R Road, brushing on those roads also, landfill site, digging out our pits instead of having that supply of Horn Bay lumber, supply an excavator at their convenience, a sludge pit shaping and emptying, demolitions, water line repairs. We own one gravel pit. We have to maintain that gravel pit, recondition and use it as an excavator to dig into that pit. These are all little projects we can do with that excavator.
Okay. Okay, so I have the motion that's been read. Thank you for that, Dwayne. That puts a full picture of what we could use an excavator and how it would benefit our community. So I've checked off 3, reallocate the funds that were set aside for demolition towards the purchase of equipment. Is council in agreement with that? Okay, I'm going to put the motion to the vote. Those in favor? Okay, any opposed? And that is carried. And I'm thinking, Gail, it'll take a few, probably our September or October meeting.
I would think more likely October.
To get a plan together.
Yeah, staff still has vacation to take, and I just think it's pushing it to promise it before that.
Yeah, oh, for sure, for sure. This is going to take some time, some research. Okay, so moving on, we have 16.7. Third quarter water and sewer bills. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Drago and Peter. Moved by Drago Stefanik, second by Peter Kistemaker. Whereas the Township of Hornpain adopted bylaw number 1805 on July 15th, 2020, which sets out the final tax installment dates of the 30th day of September 2020 and the 30th day of November 2020. And whereas Council at a previous meeting discussed extending the third quarter water and sewer billings to be due and payable on the 31st day of October 2020 in order to avoid property taxes and water and sewer accounts coming due in the same month. And therefore be it resolved that the Council, the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain does hereby formalize the extension of the third quarter water and sewer billings to be due and payable on the 31st day of October 2020 as opposed to the 30th day of September 2020. Did you want to comment on this, Gail, or anything?
I'm sorry, you cut out.
Did you want to comment on the motion at all before I put it to a vote? I think it's just cleaning up our.
It is. It's just. I think what happened was the treasurer was thinking that was covered in the water and sewer rate bylaw, as it is in the tax policy bylaw, and it's not.
It's not. Okay. So it's just covering the decisions that we had already put forth. So I'll put the motion to a vote. Those in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, moving on to 16.8. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Peter and John. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Whereas Council adopted bylaw number 1720, a bylaw to provide assistance to seniors for snow removal on March 6, 2019. And whereas the deadline for submitting requests in the bylaw is June 30th of each year. And whereas Council recognizes the circumstances surrounding COVID-19 have presented challenges of all sorts for many residents, perhaps more so for seniors, and wishes to be supportive of them. Therefore, be it resolved that, in line with the special considerations having already been put in place for both property taxes and water and sewer accounts, the Council, the Corporation, the Township of Hornpain does Hornpain hereby extends the submission deadline for requests for rebates under this program to August 31st, 2020 for this year only. Any discussion on the motion? I think in light of the COVID funds that we are told we're receiving as of today, that this is a good move. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And let's make sure that we get that news out there to our seniors so that they can get submissions in. It's only a couple weeks away. Okay, so moving on to 16.8. 16.8 is done, sorry. 16.9. The Hornpain Outreach and Community Engagement Report. And that's the final report. I think we just wanted this on there on the agenda so that we don't lose the report and it's put where it needs to go for our further planning. Yes, go ahead, Gail.
I believe in our strat plan, it's shown for 2021 and just a minute. Arts, culture, recreation plans and strategies 2021 and 2022.
Yes. So that's where we're heading, Council. So go ahead, Councillor Kistemaker, Peter.
Yes, Madam Mayor, somebody pointed out to me, on page 23, there was a remark made about our lead hand at the arena, and his name is in there, and I don't think it should be. That is was very, it's just, I don't like it at all. I like his name in there if I could.
Okay, you're on page, sorry, which page? Oh, sorry.
23. Number 42. It's a very personal opinion on somebody, and then these personal opinions. I don't think it's right. I don't know.
Where is this?
Page 23.
Of the recreation report.
Recreation report. Item number 41. Oh, pardon me, 42.
Yeah, that's definitely, you are completely correct. Any names need to be taken out. Definitely. Good call on that. Go ahead, Stacy. Oh, you're muted.
I think those were it's just the raw data for the survey. I think that went to council, but that shouldn't go on the public report. So I can make sure that that's not on the public report.
Okay. Was there any other spots, Peter, that you saw on where there was any sort of names identifiable to persons? We should be having those taken off.
That's the only one I saw, and to be honest, it was someone else that actually pointed out to me today because I did forget about it after seeing it the first time.
No, thank you for that, and thank them for us too. We definitely, we're all on board that we want to protect the staff, and that's not the way we do operations at Hornpain. John, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just a comment on the notes. Isn't it 16.7, the senior snow removal rebate, and 16.8 is the recreation report?
I have 16.9.
Yeah,
sorry,
it's because the numbers shifted when the item was moved. So you're probably looking at two different versions.
No problem, sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you for that, John. Gail, just to double check, am I using the correct version? You're muted.
I am on the new version, and my recreation report is 16.8.
Okay, so I'm using the wrong version. Okay, because I printed it off right before the meeting. Just a second. No, both the versions I have are the wrong versions.
But if you update your, like on your iPad, if you update, there's the revised version on there. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay, I'm just looking at my paper copies. Okay, no problem. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a note. So right now I'm at 16.8. Okay, thank you for that, John. And so moving on to, so we're going to put that report where it needs to be so that we have it for when we do that planning. And then so council, you know that this report is there. We're going to be looking at in our key priorities, economic development. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page now. It's under master plans. It's 2021 next year and 2022 that we're going to be doing these plans. So this is some of the information that you'll need to be prepared for that. Okay, so now moving on to 16.9, CN property. And I don't have a resolution for this one, correct, Grail?
That's correct.
Okay. And Drago?
This is mine, Gail. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just an update for the new members of council. I spoke out of turn. I apologize last meeting because it wasn't my report as the council member. This would be specific report to this. I will not belabor the point what I said for the last 6 years, but I'm humbled to say the CM properties were kept immaculate in 2003 for our 75th anniversary. They were every piece of property they owned. It was exquisite. That's 2003. Ever since then, I've been in council 6 years. It's hit and miss basis. Some things are done, some things are not. So I'm not going to belabor. What my suggestion through the mayor is to the administration team, I respectfully recommend that the administration team starts communicating with CN this fall in what is their plan in maintaining their properties in 2021. The reason I say that because a couple years previous, the administration went forth and asked them what's going to be done, and they say it was not budgeted for. So that's where I like to be prepared for 2021 as member of council. Basically, it's grass trimming, weed eating, picking up garbage and debris. Will not take more than $10,000. End of my presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Kistemaker. Any further comments from council on that? I do have one question with our planning. Where is our property standards bylaw in our planning? Where is that going to fit in? Because that's where the power comes from. Just for when we were in some conversations with our contacts at CN, that's what other municipalities use, is their property standards bylaw, and then it's shipped off to them, and this is the expectation of their properties. And then we have something that's in writing that we use with them. Go ahead, Gail. Oh, Stacy, okay. You're muted. That's okay, Stacy. It makes me feel important, like I have a job.
So we're doing the official plan in the zoning bylaw, and the property standards will come from that zoning bylaw. So I'm not sure if it'll be fully completed at the March 2021, but the majority of it will be then.
Okay, so maybe we could send off a letter and put it in writing that this is coming, and to CN, and that we expect properties to be kept up. It's been an ongoing concern, and we're trying to work together to better Hornpain. Go ahead, Belinda.
Sure, we can do that.
Maybe can we send them a letter and say what we're doing and that we would like them to participate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good idea.
We sort of had that discussion today, not particularly about properties, but about participating and working together, right? When we had a call with them today. So that will fit right in, really.
Yes, yeah, just I don't know if we want to talk too much about that call today on the CM property. We did bring it up again, and we just talked about the different things that are happening in Hornpain, and that CN really needs to get on board because it will be beneficial to them and us, and we can just create those synergies together. So I am hoping that we, coming up in the next couple of weeks, that they'll be able to set up a meeting with the new vice president of the Western district, so the Western zone that we're under now, because we fall under a different vice president. So that'll be coming, and once we find out, council will hear of that meeting. So is that sufficient for right now, Drago, for moving forward? Get them at the table, get them knowing we're going there?
I think it's a good start. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Drago, for continually bringing it to our attention, and theirs for that matter. Okay, so moving on to 16.10, council committee updates. We'll do a round table discussion, and then after we'll finish up 18, and then we'll have a break before we go into closed session. Okay, just so people know if okay, so council roundtable, we'll start with Peter. I think you might be muted, or I can't hear you, Peter.
Sorry, I said no, there's nothing to report at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kistemaker. Okay, Councillor Stefanik. I'm just so council knows, I'm going in order of how you appear on my screen.
Okay, real quick, what the PHU region, we have 72 positive cases recorded. And as Mayor knows and Gail knows, the closest one, I'm not sure if you're aware, it happened in Hearst 2 weeks ago. It was positive, and that individual tested negative. It was quite a controversy in Hearst, actually. So we got to be very attentive to this issue because it is pretty close home now when it's in Hearst. On a personal note, I finally get my, I saw my surgeon, my hip operation replacement in January. That's a good story because it's walking apart for him. Number two is not a good story. He looked at my left hip. As soon as my right hip is done, repaired, we'll go to the left hip. So that's why there's so much pain in the last 6 months, which I didn't know. So at least we'll start. And the other one is Central Ontario. I'm going to have to speak to Gail. We'll have to start meeting electronically now because the fact is waiting for council not to meet face-to-face. So I'm certainly not going to meet face-to-face with Central Ontario ad hoc committee. So I'll speak to Gail to make some arrangements starting in October. All the staff is back. Full flight, I assume, Gail. And then we could go from there, and we got to start moving because we're changing the whole map of the trails and whatnot, as Belinda knows, being a committee and Stacey. So we like to start sometime in October. And thank you.
Great, thank you for that update, and good luck.
Thanks.
Glad. Yes. Okay, moving on, Councillor Peroff.
Yeah, it's for me, it's been pretty quiet the last little while, and I don't really have anything prepared for an update.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. And Councillor Kistemaker, Belinda?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay, thank you. The only update that I have is that I'm back. I'm not taking any more leave or vacation, so to speak, and it's been nice to be back and up to date. I'm looking forward to AMO next week. Stacey and I met briefly today just to go over that, just so council knows this is completely online. We have submitted a question for the Ministers Forum, and hopefully our question gets picked. And also, I'm looking forward to, that is one thing I am excited about, is the bear pit, they call it, where they have the ministers all set up all together. They've actually divided that into 3 different sessions. So I am looking forward to that. I think the questions will be, and they've had to submit the questions today by noon. So I think those sessions will be key to participate in. And I have to say we were a little frustrated today because a different format, this online format, but I will give an update at council in our September meeting about how it went, of course, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's it for now. And it just happened to work out, amazingly enough, with CN that I'm totally available Monday to Wednesday. I should knock on wood because, of course, it could change. And but I am looking forward to and I have to give a shout out to Gail and the staff for the report that was put together for the Municipal Affairs and Housing for our delegation. I am, Gail, thoroughly impressed, and we have so much on the go. I wanted to put that in, like, for the community to read. So I'm not sure if you shared it with all of council, but definitely share it with all of council, because it's a testament to all the hard work that's been done and that's happening, and the changes that are occurring in our community. We're on the right track. So thank you so much.
I will, thank you for that. I will, when I finish the one for the Ministry of Energy and Northern Development and Mines, I'll forward both at the same time.
Thank you. Okay. And okay, that's it for my update. And so we're moving on to 17 resolutions. We've been passing them as we go, and then 18 is bylaws. Okay, that's a special meeting. Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder, please. And this is we have this is the one for the conflict, right? 18.1. Sorry, I should have announced that.
Yep, yes, it is.
So we have a mover for Drago, and a seconder would be John. Are you good, John? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And moved by Drago Stefanik, second by John Peroff. Be it resolved that bylaw number 18.7 being a bylaw to authorize the sale of 237 First Street, legal description, CON 3 lot, or its concession 3 lot, 14 part parcel 6025 AWS RP AR 800 part 18 assessment roll number 5796 00000020290 at the purchase price of $4,000 plus HST by the corporation the township of Hornpain be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed. Be it further resolved that council hereby instructs the CAO clerk and the municipal solicitor to complete all necessary work and prepare all documents to complete the transfer as soon as possible. All legal fees and disbursements are the responsibility of the purchaser. Be it finally resolved that Gail Jeremy, CAO clerk, is hereby authorized to sign all necessary documents on behalf of the municipality to complete the transfer. And I call out to Councillor Stefanik and Peroff for a vote in favor. And any opposed? That's carried. Okay, so moving on, we have our motion on the floor to go into closed. And like I said, we'll take a 10-minute break after we pass this resolution to get into closed. So if I can get a mover, Drago? Are you?
Madam Mayor,
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
May I have respectfully 15 minutes, please?
Yeah, we could do 15 minutes.
I have to move my leg, if it's possible. I really appreciate it.
That is fine. We can do that. I think everyone needs a stretch. Are you going to move that, Drago?
Sure, thank you.
Drago, okay. And if I can get a seconder, please, John? Sure. I didn't see a hand. Yeah, John, okay. I catch it out of the corner of my eye sometime when I'm going to write. So moved by Drago Stefanik, second by John Peroff. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting at 8:38 p.m. be closed to the public in order to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, pursuant of sections 239(2) CF of the Municipal Act 2001. And those in favor? Okay, any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, so we'll set the time for 8:55. Did I do my math right? Okay. Okay, we'll see everybody and close at 8:55.
Okay, so don't forget to use the other link.
Yes, there you go. Thank you, Gail.